Our next speaker, it's a delight to be able to introduce Venerable Bhikshuni Pema Deki. Was born in England and was educated at universities in Cambridge and London. She left a high-powered financial career to explore the traditions of yoga and meditation. In Bhutan, with the help of her lamas, she became the first Western woman to be ordained as a Getsuma in Bhutan in the Drakpa Kagyu lineage in 2014. She was ordained as a bhikshuni in the historic event which took place in Bhutan in 2022. In 2015, Pema Deki founded the registered UK charity Opening Your Heart to Bhutan to help children in that country. To date, the charity has helped hundreds of children in Bhutan gain access to education and medicine. In 2017, she was given the Point of Light Award by the UK Prime Minister in recognition for this exceptional charity work. It is our honour to welcome online Venerable Bhikshuni Pema Deki.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I only just sorted out my computer, so I'm a little bit behind with hearing your introduction. Can I just clarify, is it a half-hour talk? Because I wasn't sure. You're going to run back again?
Yes, I'm not sure if you can only hear on the mic. It's approximately half an hour. Yes, please.
It's approximately half an hour. Okay. And can I share my screen? To share some slides?
Did you have another message, Tina? No, we're good. 3:15. So it's approximately 40 minutes, Venerable.
Okay. Can I share my screen to share some slides?
Yes, if you intend to do that, I'll confirm that we can see them.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So I'll do that in a minute. So maybe you can stay where you are. You don't have to
will happily do
yourself
that.
running back and forth. All right. I just wanted to check the timing. Just because you gave a very profound write-up on this talk and stabilizing the mind and transforming the mind and freeing the mind from any negative thoughts. So I just wanted to see if I could achieve that in 40 minutes. It's quite a tall order. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining my session today. And if you would like to put your cameras on, it'd be lovely to see some people if you feel comfortable with that. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, really alive people is something I enjoy more than black screens. I have to be honest, even though we're not supposed to experience any partiality of mind. So that's really nice to see you. Thank you for putting on your videos. So I don't know what hello Nikki, I don't know what kind of Buddhist background you come from, and I don't know how much practice you've done. So whenever you do these kinds of talks, you're never quite sure you know, where to pitch it. So I would really encourage you, there's a chat function here at the bottom, and we have a moderator who hopefully has remained close to his microphone. So I would really encourage you to ask questions and pitch in at any time, because, as I say, I want to help you with the little knowledge that I have. So I don't know so much about your background. I think you just heard about my background in Bhutan. And so I'm a Vajrayana practitioner. And so my talk today will be coming from that perspective and from my trainings in Bhutan. And so I may use terms that you're very familiar with, or I may use terms that you're not familiar with. So please do ask a question. It's really through asking questions that we learn a lot. I think even the Buddha gave us that example, didn't he, to ask questions and to inquire. So yeah, please do that. So to summarize the Vajrayana path in terms of practicing compassion, obviously we study it a lot. We study the nature of love and kindness and compassion in texts like Gampopa, and all of the texts to do with what it is to aspire to be a bodhisattva for the benefit of all beings. But in terms of the sadhana practice, the meditation practice based on Vajrayana, when we do sadhana in Vajrayana, it's called the results-based practice. Now, what result might we be talking about? The result we're talking about is the potential for Buddha nature to fully ripen in our being. And when we practice from a Vajrayana point of view, it's a results-based practice because we seek to imagine our own being fully ripened with a limitless mind of compassion and wisdom. That's why it's called the results-based vehicle. And that's quite an extraordinary way of practicing meditation if you think about it. I mean, I'm sure you probably know the extraordinary depth and breadth of the Buddhist lineage. Has so many teachings in it, so many methods in it. And when we practice from a Vajrayana point of view, imagining that we are, in this case, a fully ripened mind of limitless compassion, which we use the word Chenrezig for, you can see that you're a long way from doing a meditation practice based on very much being you in your ordinary form, with all your ordinary ideas of who you are and what you struggle with. So we leap into a place of the result. And that's quite an extraordinary way of practicing, I think. And it's partially because in the Vajrayana tradition, the teachings on Buddha nature, the third wheel teachings, as we call them, the teachings on Buddha nature and how Buddha nature exists in all sentient beings, and the path to how it arises most quickly. You know, that's a strong part of Vajrayana teachings. So in this results-based way of practicing, in which you become in your own mind, using your visualization powers, your feeling powers, your intellectual understanding, you become inseparable from the deity of compassion. When we practice, obviously, a refuge, arising bodhicitta, but the main sadhana, the main way of practicing meditation in the Vajrayana tradition has these two stages to it, which you may well be familiar with. So I apologize if you already are very clear about this. So the two stages are the generation stage and the dissolution or completion stage. And then that's followed by dedication, very important. So when we talk about how to meditate in the Vajrayana tradition, we always talk about the two stages. And it's a huge subject, actually. So when we say generate, what we are saying is that the mind needs support and form in the first instance to stabilize and be undistracted and to be peaceful, which you will say, okay, well, all meditation methods do that. Yeah, but then it's supercharged by taking on the form of the deity. Yeah. So in the generation stage, you will visualize the deity, you will imagine their qualities, which are none other than the qualities inherent to your being. Yeah, but they haven't fully ripened yet, but they are inseparable from the ultimate nature of your own being. So you're going to visualize those, and you're particularly going to use the mantra of that deity, which in the case of Chenrezig, in the case of compassion, as you probably well know, is the extraordinarily beautiful Om Mani Padme Hum. Yes. So this will give us stability. And I'll show you a few slides in a minute just to illustrate that a little bit further. But it's also very important to think and practice not only stability, but non-clinging, non-grasping. I mean, I think we can say that in most methods of beginning meditation, because we're using a form to bring our mind to, we can still use the same grasping methods that we normally use in everyday life. So in the Vajrayana way, when we do the generation stage to stabilize the mind, we are also beginning to practice what is called appearance emptiness. That means we don't stabilize by clinging to something anymore, which can be very tempting in other early stages of meditation. And so this appearance emptiness way of meditating in the generation stage is very important for training your mind to observe phenomena as illusory, to practice a non-grasping mind. So in this way, we are stabilizing the mind through the generation phase, but we're also freeing it from grasping, and that's very important. And it reflects the training in the two truths of Buddhism, the relative truth and the ultimate truth. Appearance, the form of relative truth, the illusory form of relative truth, and emptiness, relating to the teachings on wisdom, the ultimate truth, realizing the ungraspable nature of reality. So this, recognizing those two truths. Yeah, so let me turn to some slides now just to see if I can clarify that a bit more. Here we go. Oh. Trying to share. Hoping it's going to share. Oh, wait a minute. Stop share. Right, let me just do that again. Right.
We saw part of the screen. I'll confirm when we can see the whole screen.
Yeah, you can see like a mini part of the screen, can't you?
You can see a mini bar of the screen, but not the whole screen.
Oh, how annoying is that? Does that mean I got a free form? Well, that's extremely annoying. If I there's no way I can send it to you, is there?
Venerable, hi.
Yes. Hello again.
Hi again.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
So we're just waiting for your email to come through, and our IT is working on that. In the meantime, would you be able to share some of the amazing work that you've been doing with your charity? I'm sure everyone would love to hear it. And for those online, we're going to post in the link as well as in the YouTube description some information about Pema's good work as well. Thanks, Pema.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can do, but we also have a very good question here from Fraser. Venerable, do you envisage the deity of compassion in all other beings also? Brilliant, brilliant, absolutely brilliant question. So yes, very, very much so within the practice, towards the actually, yeah, towards the end of the generation practice, you precisely do that. And you know, when all beings are free of suffering, when the suffering of whatever clouds them falls away, then what will shine through is their own Buddha nature in realized form, isn't it? Completed form. And so in this practice, we definitely do that. Not only do we do that, but we imagine their state of joy when they are arisen like that, you know, when they're totally clear. It's not just like a good idea, it's a completely joyful state, free of obscuration. So you not only imagine all beings like that, but you imagine the joy that emanates from that too. And obviously a practice to be aware of once you leave formal practice and go about your daily life is to remember and to look at beings in that way, temporarily clouded, but with the potential to arise as Chenrezig, and the joy that will come from that. Yeah. In fact, it's quite interesting because in some Vajrayana traditions, when you do towards the end of the sadhana and when you come to the dedication, you dedicate as if you're you again, you're your ordinary sense again. Actually, in Bhutan, when we do it, we dedicate as Chenrezig in that result form already. So interestingly enough, in the way that we do it in Bhutan, you don't officially restart being your ordinary self. Once you have imagined your own being as the deity of compassion, you finish the generation stage, disillusion stage, and you arise from the disillusion stage again as the mind of compassion. You dedicate as if you are the mind of compassion. So at no point within the prayer does it say, go back to being Fraser or Nikki or Susan. Of course, your normal habits and predispositions and perceptions will just automatically seep in again, but it actually never says that. Okay, Fraser, if you have another question, you can ask. Oh, good. Right, so should we...
Confirming,
okay,
Venerable Pema Deki, we have
fine.
your slides, we do.
Oh, thank you so much. So, as I say, you may well be familiar with this, but just in case you're not, this is the 6-syllable mantra, this very sacred mantra, these sacred sounds, originating from India, passing over into the Himalayan region. And yes, so there we go. So Om in white, Ma in green, Ni in yellow, Pe in light blue, Me in red. You can see the Ma, and then the Dengbo, the line at the top is the vowel E, Me, and then Hung in dark blue. Okay, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about this mantra of compassion in terms of stabilizing the mind. So maybe you can do the next slide, assistant. Thank you. What is mantra? Mantra is a sacred utterance, often in Sanskrit or based in Sanskrit. And it can be either a seed syllable or a long mantra. Some of our mantras are very long, like the Vajrasattva mantra is very long. This is a very small one. It's a sound which connects you to a greater state of being or harmony. And Om is a key example of this. It's used in the beginning or end of a sadhana or a prayer, or it can be used, as I've said, to in this generation stage of a practice. It's also, in this last point here, an expression of primordial emptiness. And we have this phrase, sound as emptiness. And as I said before, we are always recognizing appearance and emptiness. So the appearance here is sound, its ultimate nature is emptiness. So we are always doing that, and it's the same quality in when we look at sound. Okay, let's see what's on my next slide, able assistant. Yeah. So I've said it's the purpose to stabilize the mind to relaxed concentration, like any form-based meditation practice. So whether it's your breathing, whether you're looking at a stone, whether you're using a mantra, we're still using a kind of support. We're still using some kind of form in which to concentrate and narrow our focus to stop us being constantly distracted and running around. So, as you know from basic mindfulness practice, mindfulness means really not forgetting my support. When you're unmindful of your support, you've wandered off and thought about pizzas and what the weather's like in Sydney and I don't know what, yeah? And because, as we said in that enormous write-up on the talk, often when our mind wanders, it's a very negative experience for us. Mantra is seen as something to protect the mind from involvement in negative distraction. I mean, any support for a practice will protect your mind from distraction, which is seen as inherently negative, and not when you sit down to meditate, you don't think, great, I'm going to sit down and be as distracted as possible. We're trying to not do that. So it's protecting us from that state of distraction. So all form-based supports will do that, but mantra is particularly seen to do that. In fact, mantra, the very word, man in Sanskrit meaning mind and tra mean to protect, the very word mantra means to protect the mind. Yeah, and obviously to protect the mind from what? From negative distraction. So the third point here, to link the human to a greater purpose or level of consciousness through a vibration. And that's why sometimes actually it's quite useful not to worry too much about a mantra's translated meaning. Om mani padme hum. When you repeat those sounds, they have a power of their own. They have a quality of vibration, sound emptiness, as I said, which is quite powerful. So often people say, what exactly does Om Mani Padme Hum mean? And I would say this is one of the instances where don't worry about trying to translate it into English. Just experience it as sound emptiness, and that it will work like that. Yeah, and then the final point, it says to connect to the essence of an enlightened mind. So, for example, Om Mani Padme Hum is seen as the essence of compassion, is sometimes seen as calling the deity of compassion, calling it. So, again, it's this sense of connecting you to the results vehicle, the complete mind of compassion. It's connecting you, you're saying that. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so here again, you may well know this, but this particular mantra is very useful for teaching us so much about Buddhist practice. So these 6 syllables directly relate to the 6 forms of suffering in the 6 realms. In the desire realm, as you know, there's 3 impure realms: form, formless, and desire. This mantra will go to all of those realms, but the 6 syllables particularly relate to the kinds of sufferings in the 6 realms. So Om relates to the suffering of pride. Ma relates to the suffering of jealousy. Ni relates to the suffering of desire, which is often seen as typical of the human realm, the one that we're in right now. Pe is the state of not knowing, sometimes called ignorance, but of course, that word ignorance for many people in the West has a particularly strange connotation. So it's just not knowing, not having that wisdom, that quality. Me is the hungry ghost realm, so this is insatiable greed, greed that cannot be satisfied, that terrible suffering. And then Hung, the mind afflicted by hatred or anger. So these sounds, and when we visualize them in the generation state, not only does this mantra stabilize and protect our mind from negative thought, but in speaking this mantra and visualizing it, we send the lights of this mantra to all of these 6 realms and to the beings suffering from pride, jealousy, desire, greed, and so forth, as if this sound and this compassion is touching each of those beings. And as I said, with that, the suffering of those beings can fall away and they can arise as Chenrezig themselves. So we really are encouraged to think about the nature of suffering, the 6 realms, these 6 forms of obscurations, that, how can you say, hold people back, stop their Buddha nature showing, etc. Now, if we have the next slide, I'll just show you how we really use this in the generation stage. Yeah. So here you have a prayer wheel from the Himalayas, which of course turns clockwise, as always in the way, in the non-Bon orientated practice in the Himalayas, we go clockwise, yeah. So here's a prayer wheel, and you can begin to see the Om there and the Ma there and the Ni, just as we saw before. Can you see that? Yes. And so this prayer wheel, if you turn it in a temple or outside a temple, you're going to turn it clockwise like this. And when we do the practice of compassion using this mantra ourselves, we're going to visualize in the form of light, as described, there's different colors in the light. We're going to visualize this same prayer wheel here in the center of our chest. We are going to visualize a moon disk here and a central syllable here. Don't worry too much about that. And then clockwise, we are going to visualize in the very center of our being, in the form of light. So all of those syllables of freeing the sufferings of those 6 realms is going to be shining from this internal prayer wheel, shining through a limitless space in all directions, not just in front, the sides, behind us, right? So we literally visualize ourselves as if we are this shining prayer wheel, really, from inside. Which is something, is very useful to be aware of. Yeah, so that's a key part of the generation stage. What's my next slide now? Let me see. Yes, here we go. Now, again, you may be very familiar with this image, some of you or not. So let me just clarify. So in the beginning, when we are trying to imagine the completed mind of compassion, and then even this extraordinary possibility of ourselves becoming that, being that, it's very useful to have these forms to imagine. So here we have a representation of the form of a mind of compassion, and it's called Chenrezig. It's in a seated quasi-human form, so easy for us to associate ourselves with. It's not a huge leap for us to imagine our current ordinary state transforming into this seated figure. And you can see from the center of this figure, the center of their heart, these these 6 syllables arising here. Yeah, so from the center here, the prayer wheel we've just described. Yeah, Om Ma Ni Ped Me Hong. Yeah, and these rainbow-like streams here are to represent that idea of that colored light, which is like a rainbow. As I've said before, it's the appearance emptiness. Now, the appearance is there like a rainbow, but it's ultimately ungraspable, again, like a rainbow. So when we imagine our own being as the completed mind of compassion, this a prayer wheel will be turning, ever turning, endlessly, and sending its sounds and its compassion to all beings with these sufferings. Yeah. So I think we can stop the slides now. So hopefully that's given you some idea of how this practice of compassion both stabilizes the mind, but also transforms it. It transforms your perception of your self, transforms your perception of reality in terms of, trying to grasp at it as inherently solid. So stabilizes that, but transforms it, because you're visualizing yourself transformed into a deity shining with compassion. Now, I did mention at the beginning that we have these 2 stages, generation and completion or dissolution. And this is important. In fact, we were, well, I won't go down there. I'll leave that. So we have done this huge stabilizing and transformatory practice. At all beings, suffering has been removed. They are joyful, shining like Chenrezig. Our own being is in the form of limitless compassion. And so from that stage, we then dissolve. We dissolve everything. So all of the visual supports, the sound supports that I've talked about, at the end of this practice will be dissolved into light, and then they'll just be dissolved. And that's when when we dissolve all these appearances that we've created, all these appearances, all these sounds, all these appearances, then we are told to rest in the essential nature, which is beyond thought and description. So if we think about it in terms of the process, we've gone from having a distracted mind, very much grasping to an ordinary self. We have then stabilized the mind by concentrating on becoming Chenrezig, using the mantra, which is also a transformatory thing to see yourself as Chenrezig. We've created all of that in a very positive way to free us from this self-grasping and the distraction over here. But this is all still present now. We're going to dissolve all of that in the form of light and rest in the essential nature. So at that point, there is no support in the way of a visualization. There's no support in terms of a mantra. You're simply letting the mind rest. That's the dissolution stage. And that stage then is really further explored in more advanced meditation practices such as Mahamudra. Yeah. So you can see how, I hope I've given you some idea of how profound this practice of compassion is in the Vajrayana tradition. How many aspects of it are so transformatory for us as practitioners. Yeah. And I hope it's made some sense to you. So as I say, I can see maybe a couple of questions are coming in. I hope so. So yeah. I feel somebody's asked here about the prayer wheel. I feel that we should never forget that this prayer wheel, sending compassion, is present. All we suffer from is the clouds that can't see it. I think it's always helpful to remember it. Yeah, so I would always imagine it turning, saying this, sending light out. I would always imagine that. Yeah, I think it can be helpful if it works for you. So Tina asked me about my charity. So very much, I think, as a result of doing many years of compassion practice, and also doing the 110,000 mandala offerings as part of Nungdro, I just came across the circumstances where I felt that I needed to take some compassion action in the world. I sort of found a place where I felt I could make a difference. And so that's why I founded my charity for special needs children in Bhutan. I don't know, some of you may have been to Bhutan, and it's such an incredible place. And it is the country where the fourth king had this vision of gross national happiness, which very much people know. It is, however, still a country with quite a bit of a way to go in terms of relieving very basic sufferings. And for children with special needs in rural areas, that's the case. And as you can see, I'm quite chatty. I'm not shy in coming forwards, as we would say in England. And of course, for many special needs children, they lack that capacity to speak for themselves, to tell people of their needs. And I felt I had a good mouth on me, to help them. So we have had the chance to help many of them now. And sometimes when we do a lot of practice, it's very nice to have your mind existing in a kind of pure realm, in a kind of Doa-Chen, where all beings have been freed from suffering. It can become so nice that you can sort of slightly forget why you're doing it a little bit. You can kind of wander off. And I find it very helpful not to wander off so much that I forget the harsh reality of suffering. With that kind of shock, I guess, when the Buddha left the palace, that kind of shock of oh heck, the existence of being, wow, okay, we call it suffering, but even suffering, if we say it too much, doesn't sound that heart-piercing. But being suffering it can really hit you sometimes, how hideous it is. And I think it's important to both practice compassion and then see that one's own mind becomes stronger, more resilient, more determined to help others. And it allows you the courage to remain alongside people who are suffering in whatever way. And that's been my experience of combining the work of the charity with this formal practice as my personal experience. Yeah, many times I thought to give up doing the charity. It's been very hard work.
Venerable Pema Deki, can I, on behalf of the room and the community...
Oh, we're finishing.
No, yeah, yes, and I'm taking the opportunity to thank you for your incredible charity work.
I was just wandering off.
No.
Lost any sense of time. Did you see how that happened? I just lost any sense of time.
No, that is okay. That is my job.
I did say I had a mouth on me. Didn't I? Didn't I say that? Okay.
Everyone, can you please thank our wonderful Dharma talk from Venerable Pema Deki.
I hope it was helpful.
Pema Deki, thank you very much.
Okay, look after those koalas for me.
Thank you very much. Those visualizations were
I hope
beyond words beautiful. Thank you very much.